Okay. I thought there was a number of things I thought, in particular offensively, that I thought we did well. I thought we ran the ball well. Our red zone efficiency was really good when we were down there in the red area. We were able to score touchdowns. We were better on third down, and yet I still think we need to be better than we were in the game. Defensively, I don't think we were very good. We had one takeaway in the game, which was a positive. And I thought we were better in the run game in the first half. And then in the second half, I don't think we did a very good job of stopping the run. So we kind of, switched positions a little bit, and that we didn't do a very good job defending the passing game, and weren't able to get much of a rush in the first half. And then in the second half, I thought, we did a little bit better job of, getting a little bit of rush and defending in the passing game, but didn't do a good enough job in the run game. So, but look, I think we had, I think it was a good, training camp. I think we got a lot accomplished. And I think we've got some tough decisions to make over the next 48 hours or whatever the case may be. And so, we'll be kind of turning our attention to doing that.
And Dennis, I know you got to go back and look at the tape for today, but how do you feel about just your overall quarterback depth? How do you feel about the two guys, the backup?
Yeah, well, I'd say over the last, week to 10 days, I feel like Hainer took a real big step forward in practice. I don't think we saw as much of that in the game. Now, what are the reasons why, whether it be routes or protections or misreads or whatever the case may be? I think we go back and we look at the tape and evaluate where that was. I thought Spencer, did some nice things today. I thought he looked, calm, poised, made some good throws, was able to extend some plays with his feet, get some first downs, by tucking and running. So, I felt good about, and feel good about the quarterback room.
Dennis, can you explain the plan with the quarterback rotation today and kind of why specifically like Jake got those last two drives?
Well, look, the plan going in was Jake in the first quarter, Spencer in the second quarter, and really trying to twofold, get them with, the second kind of offensive line group, where they're kind of playing with the same people and playing against a higher level of competition, on the other side to try to, kind of make this thing a little bit more of a fair evaluation. The second half was designed to be Jake in the third quarter, Spencer in the fourth quarter. And then when you started to look at the play count, I think Spencer was at 27, 28 plays or something like that. And Jake was, 15 to 18 plays, something. So I kind of wanted to even up the play count a little bit.
Dave, regardless of who ends up being the backup, like if you wanted to, is there a way to get all three of them snaps so both Jake and Spencer keep developing during the season? I know sometimes it's like the second guy gets all the look and then the third guy kind of waits. Like, is there a way to keep
Well, yeah, look, I mean, that'll be something that we'll have to navigate if that's the case. But yeah, I think to your point, being able to work with these young quarterbacks and develop these young quarterbacks, that's our job. That's what we've got to be able to do. So we've got to figure out how we're going to be able to get that done.
Dennis, how emotional is it going to be next couple of days when you got to cut down maybe players on the bubble?
Yeah,
and then how gratifying the other way.
Yeah.
Telling somebody you made the team.
Yeah. Well, here's the reality. The reality is that you go from 90 guys on your roster and you have to get all the way down to 53. And so that's always tough. And look, these guys have worked extremely hard. Go all the way back to the beginning of the off-season program, through the OTAs, mini camp, training camp, preseason games. Like, these guys put their heart and soul into this. Young guys, vet guys, And so it's always it's always a tough deal. And on the flip side, as you said, to see some of this hard work, pay off, is also just as gratifying as it is difficult on the other end.
Coach, among the players that are on the bubble, combined with recent practices and today's game, does any one or a few of them stand out to you as ones who may have?
Yeah, you know what? That's I'm not going to get into any type of potential personnel decisions. Those are things that we'll have to look at over the next 48 hours and make those decisions.
What went into your usage of the kickers today? That was not a two-person, like you only had Blake kicking today. What?
Yeah. Well, look, Charlie, had a little bit of some groin tightness come up on Friday, and I didn't want to really risk it too much and putting him out there and having him kick a bunch of kicks, and but I thought Blake responded to getting an opportunity and kicking the ball through the uprights. I mean, I thought he had a good day today.
And we didn't spot Colin Saunders. Is he dealing with anything?
Colin Saunders is dealing with a calf injury.
Isaiah Foskey, I don't know if we've asked you about him since the games. He hasn't had a lot of production in the games after he did take a step forward in practices. What's your overall view of how he's done the last couple of years?
Well, my overall view is I think he's taken a step forward, and yet I think there's still some things that he's got to improve on. I think, there's some things that he could potentially help us, in the passing game some. I certainly see a vision for this guy helping us on special teams. And so I think you still have a young player that still needs to develop. But I think he's taken a step forward from where he was, at this point last year.
When you're talking about players that maybe were drafted versus UDFAs, is it possible to separate that in terms of the investment versus?
Well, look, I think this. I think you come into it probably with a little bit of a leg up, being that you were a draft choice. But at the end of the day, we've got to evaluate what we see, and you have to be able to go out there and earn it, and so I guess probably if there was using a baseball analogy, I'd say probably the tie goes to the runner. So if you spent assets to go and draft a player and there hasn't been anything that's really created a separation, then you probably get a little bit of the benefit as being a draft choice. But really the reality is we've seen a lot of practices, we've seen a lot of game action, and we're going to base our evaluation based on that.
I know you haven't looked at the film, but did you like what you saw out of Trevor Penning maybe, or any thoughts there?
Yeah, look, it's hard for me to comment too much. I do think there was a few plays in there that I thought was an improvement, and so without looking at it, that the offensive line, defensive line, those are tougher evaluations just coming right off the field. But I thought overall, I know this. I know that I thought he played better in last week's game. I thought he improved this week in practice, and I saw some good things tonight too. So, I think there's some improvement being made.
And the challenge on the way that you guys did, do you think that added to it at all?
Say that again?
The way you guys challenged him by putting Udo in there, do you think that had any effect on maybe that improvement?
Probably a better question for him. You know what I mean? All I can tell you is that I felt like he played better in the game. I thought he had a good week of practice, and I thought he did some good things tonight.
What's going on through your mind when Sampson's returning it on the Sampson return?
Score. That's what was going through my mind. I mean, really, it was no blindside blocks, block above the waist, all of those things, and I mean, you can't let an offensive lineman get you out of bounds, like, right? You know, that's a play that very rarely shows up in our game, but when you really think about it, like that's why we work that situation, because you know, the coverage unit is generally offensive linemen. Sometimes you might have a D lineman, tight ends. Those are the type of players, and so there's more skill players, you know, on the return team at that time, and it's a space game, you know, and that's not the game that those guys are used to playing in. But I thought their guy, you know, did a nice job of, you know, making the play and getting enough of him to get him out of bounds.
You know, he actually ran about 150 yards on that play.
It was a lot. It was a lot. I think 150 is probably an underestimate of what he ran.
I was looking at the next gen stats thing,
Was it-
and it's
did it
like
say
150, 153, something like that. But then
It was a
Abram
lot.
ran almost the same amount. If you look at it.
He needed just a little bit more juice at the end to get that block.
I think it was a tight end that got him. At least he was listed as a tight end as the international player from the Netherlands who forced him out of bounds. But how much weight does a play like that get when you're making evaluations on the roster?
Well, look, I mean, you're not going to look at that play and that play alone and say, okay, you know, we're going to base all of our decision based on that play alone. And yet, you know, that's part of however many plays we've seen. That's just part of the evaluation. Look, I think the positive thing about that is there was a lot of smart football that took place, you know, on that play. And there was a competitive nature of, you know, the guys that were on that unit and trying to score. So I think it certainly was an exciting play, that's for sure.
Coach, you had two touchdowns called back by offensive holding penalties. As a head coach, how frustrating is that for you?
I think that's pretty obvious, right? I mean, you know, you have 2 touchdowns and now you don't have 2 touchdowns. So yeah, that's frustrating. That's part of why we play, you know, preseason games. You know, we're trying to, you know, iron some of those things out, and so it was unfortunate that you know, that happened in the game.
Cabote's effort today. Cabote today, 2 touchdowns.
I thought he did a nice job. I thought he ran the ball really well today. I thought he ran it physical. I thought he made the right reads. Yeah, I thought he did some good stuff.
Is he somebody who's kind of improved a bunch toward the back end of camp, but it was where he was at the beginning?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think he's run the ball, you know, pretty tough the last, you know, call it week of training camp, and ran it hard in the game and was effective in the game. And so, yeah, I think he's done some good things.
Dennis talked about how Jake Anders made strides in practice, but how was Spencer made strides during the games?
Well, he made some conversions. He made some nice throws. He made some good reads. He converted some things with his feet. He was poised under pressure, you know. So I thought those were the things that I thought, you know, he did in the game today that impressed me.
Yeah, how do you treat the next week? Do you still work on yourselves? Do you turn the page to Carolina? Or?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of both of that going on. You know, obviously these next couple of days is all going to be about roster management. And so that's where our focus will be over the next couple of days. I think being able to get a little recovery. I think this was a tough physical camp, and it was intended to be that way. And so part of this week is how do we refine some of the things that we're doing? How do we get an initial jump start, getting prepared for Carolina? And how do we get these guys back and ready physically, you know, for the opening game?
Was using Tali Fuanga today, was that just a fact of him not playing in that San Francisco game? You just kind of wanted to get more reps to him, or is he somebody who would have been playing today?
He would have played. You know, he would have played.
with Clint on the sideline versus up in the booth, how ultimately does that decision get made? Is it on him? Is it conversations?
Well, ultimately, that'll be my decision. But yes, there'll be some conversations that'll be had. What did I like? What did I not like? What did he like? What did he not like? You know, what's best for our players? Like, there's a lot of things that are going to go into that decision. And so, you know, we'll communicate, you know, on that over the next week or so, and figure out what we're going to do for the opening game. And we might go one way in the opening game, and somewhere down the line we might decide we need to do something different. You know, I mean, that's just whatever we decide to do for week one is just kind of a starting point. All right, thanks, guys.